Movies like Barbarian, Insidious and Saw were made for relative peanuts, yet brought in the big bucks when it comes to profit margins. But if you think those films were made for a small amount, the modern horror movies spotlighted here today are not just great in their own right, but they cost hardly anything. Seriously, one such delight was made for the total sum of £45, which these days is basically a couple of hours in the pub and a kebab on the way home. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are 10 great modern horror movies that were made for next to nothing. Number 10. The Wretched. The Wretched has the unique honour of being the first movie since Avatar in 2009 to be number 1 at the US box office for 6 consecutive weeks. The unfortunate caveat here though is that the film was released during the dark days of the pandemic, when the bulk of theatres were closed and few movies were being released. Either way, The Wretched is a witch movie that does a phenomenal job with its extremely modest $66,000 budget. Here, young Ben discovers that his neighbour is a child-eating witch who absorbs the skin of humans and animals, and also, for good measure, has shape-shifting abilities, which puts Ben on edge with every person he meets. That the witch can change form makes for a constant sense of tension, and when we do see the being's real form, the visuals, they are genuinely some of the best of the past decade or so. Number 9. Creep. By all accounts, 2014 found footage Marvel Creep costs no more than $5,000. In fact, some reports out there claim the film may have cost as little as $500. With no sense of hyperbole, Creep is so good at just, well, really getting under your skin. This is the sort of movie where you feel like you need a hot shower straight after watching it, with Mark Duplass and Patrick Price crafting a thoroughly chilling, unnerving film about the maniacal Joseph, or whatever his name is, a man who ropes in budding videographer Aaron under the guise of Joseph being terminally ill and wanting his life documented for his wife and unborn son. Of course, it turns out Joseph's story, including his name, is total BS, and Aaron becomes more and more uncomfortable with each passing moment he spends around Joseph, culminating in a spectacularly blunt finale. Duplass, who stars as Joseph as well as co-writing the film, has openly talked about how they had just a 3-person crew on Creep, with the movie being sold to Netflix for a cool 7-figure sum. Number 8. Murderdrome. Proudly labelled the world's first roller derby slasher movie, this Australian production from writer-director Daniel Armstrong was made for $6,000 Australian dollars, but that doesn't keep Murderdrome from being a loud, colourful, high-energy comedy horror delight, hinging on the suitably absurd device of a cursed pendant that invokes the mass-murdering demon Mama Skate, who returns to Earth in search of Derby Girl blood, of course. Murderdrome carved a niche audience thanks to its merging of 80s style horror and the world of roller derby. The result is as much fun for derby fans as it is for slasher fans, thanks to its endearing ensemble, rocking soundtrack, and very fun kills. Number 7. Carver. Not just did Carver only cost $30,000, but even more impressive is the fact that Emily DePremio was only 14 years of age when she wrote, directed, and edited this 2015 film, which is just quite frankly absolutely ridiculous. What were you doing at 14? Probably nothing anywhere near as cool as this, I would imagine. And the end result here, it's something pretty darn great. With a group of bullies leaving 2 classmates for dead back in a 2007 flashback, the present day of 2015 sees these bullies, now as young adults, as they're tormented by a murderous figure with a pumpkin mask and a sickle. The kills might not be the most intense and gory, but Carver has an absolutely phenomenal final 20 minutes or so. A 20 minutes that feature a couple of twists that even the biggest of horror diehards will not see coming. Trust me, you will not see that coming. Number 6. The Girl Who Cried Her Eyes Out. When searching for budget details on 2024's The Girl Who Cried Her Eyes Out, it's tough to find any real information, but a casting call that suggests actors and crew will be provided with food and accommodation, with the possibility of deferred pay depending on distribution. Basically, that suggests there is no actual budget here, which makes the end result all the more impressive. In terms of plot, The Girl Who Cried Her Eyes Out sees a group of friends head out to the woods for some partying, which is always a good idea, of course. These are just any woods though, for they are supposedly haunted by the spirits of Caroline Woodman, a young girl who was on the end of some extreme bullying several hundred years before. And when one of the group, Maddie, has an encounter with Caroline, Maddie's friends start being offed one by one. The Girl Who Cried Her Eyes Out out is a testament to the talent of all involved, featuring some fantastic performances and having the feel of a film with much higher production value than it actually has. Number 5, Skinamarink. Yes, we see your comments out there all the time on this one. It very much does split opinion, doesn't it? To some, Skinamarink is a bona fide Monday masterpiece. To others, it's a dull, overhyped piece of trash that's a waste of 100 minutes of your day. Even if you're one of those naysayers though, it's impossible not to be impressed at Skinamarink taking home a cool $2 million from a budget of just $15,000. This is one of those movies where you don't want to say too much about it for fear of taking away from the experience of those who've yet to check it out. Let's just say the film has a couple of kids waking up and being unable to find their father, all as the windows and doors of their house start to disappear. You will either love it or you will absolutely hate it and be angry at me for even mentioning it. But regardless, the success of Skinamarink is a hell of an achievement. Number 4, Milk and Cereal. Milk and Cereal has a couple of major things going for it. Firstly, it's actually, really good. Secondly, it picked up plenty of attention for costing just $800 to make. And thirdly, as well, just for good measure, the decision to release the film on YouTube for free has proven to be an extremely smart one in helping Milk and Cereal reach a major new audience out there. At a brisk 62 minutes, this found footage picture shines a spotlight on the ever eye-rolling world of online prank culture. I cannot stand it, but hey, to each their own. As writer, director, and star here, YouTuber Curry Barker shows a whole bunch of promise for far bigger things, with Milk and Cereal showing great creativity while proving to be hugely unsettling as things fully start to play out. And there's no wonder Barker's already being linked with higher budget movies. Number 3, Colin. If you thought the $800 budget of Milk and Cereal was remarkably tiny, Colin goes one better, costing just £45. That would be the film where it costs you basically a couple of hours in the pub and a kebab that I mentioned earlier. Now, at the time of release in 2008, Colin's budget would equate to approximately $65 back then. Somehow, writer-director Mark Price managed to use that £45 and make one of the most fascinating, intriguing, understated zombie movies of all time. Playing out largely like a silent movie, Colin boasts a masterful lead performance from Alistair Curtin in the title role, a young man who succumbs to the zombie epidemic taking over London. The film then follows the newly zombified Colin as he explores this strange new world, making this one of the few zombie movies to be told from the zombies' point of view, and it works so well. Number 2, The Battery. It may have cost only $6,000 to make, but writer-director Jeremy Gardner's debut film was among the most widely seen and talked about horror films on the festival circuit back in 2012. Not unlike Colin, The Battery takes an intimate, ground-level view of a zombie apocalypse, but this time it centers on two mismatched survivors wandering aimlessly in an imposing yet beautiful American wilderness. Gardner also stars here alongside Adam Cronheim, the two characters of them having almost nothing in common beyond the fact they're still human and they used to play a bit of baseball together. Flowing effortlessly from boyish comedy to mumblecore drama to highly tense horror, The Battery isn't a film that everyone will like, but nonetheless it can be agreed that there's no other zombie movie quite like this little rascal. Number 1, One Cut of the Dead. Not just is One Cut of the Dead a great horror movie made for peanuts, it's legitimately one of the very best genre films of the past decade, brilliantly blending humor, comedy, and throwing in a healthy dollop of meta-satire. To best briefly summarize things, One Cut of the Dead is a film within a film within a film, nicely split up into 3 sections of zombie goodness involving, well, those 3 films. Partially crowdfunded, One Cut of the Dead only cost around $25,000 to make, and you can tell how much fun all involved are having when watching the end product, with the movie having such an energy, such a darkly comedic undertone, and plenty of gnarly sequences to keep the gorehounds out there happy. A great horror film, a great comedy film, and more importantly, one of the smartest zombie pictures to come around in many a year.